So we are honored today to have the expertise of Clarion Associates in the production of this tool, and we have Matt Goebel here who will be speaking about just what these economic benefits are. What were the findings of the study? Please join me in welcoming Matt.
It's good to see a good turnout. You all braved the ice, so we appreciate that. Glad you made it here. I am super excited to be here. In your packets today, in your bags that you got at the conference registration, you have a copy of the new economic benefits study with the blue cover. This is the 2017 edition, hot off the presses. I actually just saw the printed version myself just in the past few hours. So we're super excited to have this. It's hot off the press. This has been a long time coming. And what we wanted to do this morning is just give you a little bit of a teaser. I'm here with my colleague, Charlie Brennan, who I'd like to acknowledge. Charlie and I are going to be giving a full, detailed summary of the document at the next conference session starting at 10:30. But what we wanted to do now is just give you a teaser and just give you a sense of kind of how the report was put together and what some of the highlights are. So with that, I'd like to just kind of walk you through, first of all, a little bit of a history lesson. And I want to start off with Lane Idelson. I'm not sure if he's here this morning. I haven't seen him. But back in 2001, Lane Idelson got this whole thing off. My apologies. The copies of the reports are not actually in your bags, but they were at the front desk, so you can pick them up at the registration table. So you might not have one in your hands right now, but you will by the time you leave the conference, just to be clear. This whole issue of the economic benefits of historic preservation in Colorado was really kick-started by Lane Idelson back around 2001. And Lane did a great job of getting together a diverse group of stakeholders, people from around the state who could say, what is it about the economics of preservation that people have questions about, that they need to know more about? He put together a very thoughtful case study advisory group, and they got together and brainstormed all the issues that we should study. We put together all the results of their work in a report that was distributed, many thousands of copies were printed, distributed around the state. Got a lot of good feedback on that from a lot of folks. I had many folks in planning commissions and historic preservation commissions and city councils come up to me and say, this provided some of the groundwork to help convince our commissioners to adopt a new historic district or to expand our preservation program. So there was a lot of good feedback. We came back and we expanded the report in 2005. And we added new topics. We extended our property values analysis to commercial buildings, for example, and we started to look at the Main Street study. We came back and we did it again a few years ago, and we expanded the study by updating all the numbers, updating the analysis, but also introducing a broad framework of sustainability, thinking about how preservation fit within the broad rubric of sustainability, which was getting a lot of attention at the time. And now we're back, and we have a new version of the report. And History Colorado and Colorado Preservation, Inc. both felt that it was time to update the numbers, but also to step back to develop a new advisory committee that could kind of step back and rethink our methodology, rethink some of the key questions that we wanted to answer. And so we're pleased to be able to present the results to you in this study that we're rolling out today. And it's not just one study. There's actually a website as well. So for the first time, we are pleased to be able to roll out preservationbenefitscolorado.com, which is going to have all the results of the study online in a very searchable, user-friendly format. You can go and you can look up your case studies from your part of the state. This also is intended to serve as a platform for future research and future case studies in the future. So we're super excited that there's a website version of this. So I want to just tell you about all the people that helped put this together. I mentioned that there was an advisory committee that was put together. That was led by Cindy Naskey of Colorado Preservation, Inc. Cindy did a wonderful job of kind of corralling getting the troops together and helping make sure all the right voices were at the table. She worked closely with Amy Unger from History Colorado, and together the two of them were really the project managers that drove this forward and brought it across the finish line. We did have a new advisory committee that was put together to advise us. Jen Charles from CPI, Shay Coburn, formerly of Main Street, Catherine Carell of Downtown Colorado, DCI, Lane Idelson from the Colorado Historical Foundation, Annie Levinsky from Historic Denver, Mark Rodman from History Colorado, and Tim Stroh from DOLA. So they were all super helpful in kind of reading drafts and primarily kind of brainstorming potential case study communities for us and thinking about potential topics. And then we at Clarion Associates actually wrote the report. And so Charlie, in particular, did a tremendous amount of research and writing with me. Our colleagues Dee Dee and Eric worked on the graphics of the report. So very much a team effort. We're very pleased to have the support of so many thoughtful folks in developing the report. I'm going to run through a very quick summary for you of what's here so that when you start to look through it, you'll see how it's organized. There's 4 main elements. The first element is going to be an introduction to the document where we establish some of the main themes. The second section is called Preservation Today, and this is the section where we celebrate 50 years of preservation in Colorado. We look back, it's been 50 years since the National Historic Preservation Act was passed. What have been the key economic accomplishments in that time? In section 3, we talk about preservation moving forward. And we try to identify some of the key trends, land use trends and social trends and demographic trends that are facing Colorado and what preservation's role is in meeting and adapting to those trends. And then finally, we try to help you put it all together in a final section that talks about the resources that are available and some of the key steps that you need to follow to actually build on all the information that's in this report. So that's the overall organization. There's a lot here. I mentioned that there's some key themes that are introduced in the first part, and just to give you a teaser about some of those, the first one is collaboration. Every preservation report, every preservation project mentioned in this report is the result of a wide network of supporters and collaborators from the public and the nonprofit sectors, from volunteers to paid groups to nonprofits. Everything that we do in the preservation community could not happen as individually. It's almost always a collaborative effort, and we celebrate that throughout this report. Preservation in Colorado is also always changing, and we talk about that throughout the report, and the types of resources that we're looking to preserve change, the types of audiences that we're looking to address change, and we try to thread that theme throughout all of the work in the document. And preservation in Colorado is statewide. It's east and west, it's big and small, it's Cortez, it's Brush, it's Denver, it's Telluride, and we have been very methodical in trying to look for case studies and feature projects throughout all corners of the state that illustrate really the wide diversity of preservation work that's out there. So you'll see a lot of feature projects in this report. There's a lot of information. And right up front, we've got an executive summary that you'll see that summarizes some of the key numbers. The intent behind the design of the executive summary, which is very early in the report, is that this can be reproduced individually. And I think CPI's goal will be to make this executive summary available as a handout that can be given to your planning commission, to your city council, to state legislators. But this covers some of the things like the dollar impacts from building rehabilitation projects, the economic impacts of heritage tourism, things like that. This is the executive summary, but within the report itself, we go into a lot of these particular topics in much more detail. And so, for example, this is just a slide that shows some of the impacts of the State Historical Fund grants that were distributed over the period when it's been in place. I think it's 93 to 2015. And we talk about the significant economic impacts that have been created as a result of all those State Historic Fund projects, from the jobs created to the additional household earnings, et cetera. So we've got a lot of hopefully very user-friendly tools like this throughout the report that really explain in pretty hard terms the economic results of the investments that the Colorado preservation community has made. We have a lot of feature projects, as I mentioned. A lot of them are classics, the good old-fashioned, courthouse rehabilitation projects like we see up in Sterling. We try to highlight new areas of the state and new feature projects that haven't been highlighted in prior versions. For each of these feature projects, we tell you a little bit about the resource itself, but also about how it has the economics of the project and how it's contributed to the surrounding community. And we try to give it some color as well with some quotes about the importance of the resource to the folks in the local community. In this case, the importance of the Logan County Courthouse to the community there in Sterling. This is a classic example of a classic preservation project, but we try to stretch the boundary as well and look at new projects. We look at the Stanley Aviation Factory in Aurora and the way that's been turned into a new marketplace with local shops and restaurants. It's a very cool, hip place, and we try to look at new resources like that to say how preservation is really evolving to meet new populations. And we look at the impacts of those resources and how the folks in the communities are responding to those and how they're helping to spur new redevelopment, as is the case with Stanley. There's a summary there. I should have, I can't quite read my numbers, but I'm off to the side. But we summarize a lot of the overall impacts from the economic analysis portions of the report on a few very user-friendly graphics for you. You can see the numbers there. This is a classic number that we always like to update, but every $1 million spent on historic preservation in Colorado leads to significant spillover effects in a lot of different ways in terms of additional spending, additional jobs and household spending, household income, et cetera. So a lot of this is broken down in the report. As in the past, there is a popular report that you can get a copy of up front, but we're also going to have the technical report online, which lays out all the detailed analysis in the background. Just a few other notes about a few other things in the report. Beyond the specific numbers, we look at how preservation supports communities. We carry forward our analysis of Colorado Main Street and local historic districts. We have now carried forward almost 20 years of analysis of local historic districts, looking at property values in those districts and the extent to which historic designation has impacted those property values. And then we're most proud of this section here, the final chapter, the Preservation Tomorrow, where we look at preservation's role in changing demographics in Colorado and the increasing populations of seniors and millennials, and what is preservation's role potentially in responding to those trends. Changing economy, changing climate. All of these types of trends are looked at through the lens of preservation. How can preservation play a role in this conversation? This is why we wanted to do this report, was to help broaden the conversation, to broaden the table so that preservation always had a role in all of these other ongoing conversations. Just for example, affordable housing. We talk about the large number of preservation projects that also take advantage of low-income housing tax credits in historic buildings. So that's a lot. That's a big, quick teaser. But we will have more for you later at the conference. And we're pleased to actually roll out several sessions that are devoted specifically to this report. So you can find out more information if you would like. Immediately after this plenary session, Charlie and myself will be doing a detailed overview of the entire report, and that's going to be Block A. Then we're going to be having a series of additional sessions where folks from the case studies that are featured in the project will actually talk in more detail about their projects and what they think the economic impacts have been in their community. So you'll be hearing 3 of those. The first one is called Preserving Our Changing Communities. You'll be hearing from folks from Jeff Pope down in Cortez, Nicole Thompson from Lake City, Cindy Neely from Silver Plume, Georgetown, talking about the way those communities are changing and how preservation is playing a role in helping them preserve a sense of place. There's going to be a session on Friday morning focused on heritage tourism, and you'll hear from Nancy Kramer from Northwest Colorado Cultural Heritage Program, Tori Martinez from Sangre de Cristo Scenic Byway, and Lenore Bates from the Byways program, talking about the economic impacts of those heritage tourism programs. And then finally, we talk in the report a lot about creative communities. I didn't mention that in my summary, but that's an important topic we address, and you'll hear a very interesting conversation from these folks here, Margaret and Felicia and Jen, about the different ways that their communities are encouraging this interplay between the creative arts and historic preservation and how that's changing their communities. So really cool stuff. That should be a good conversation Friday afternoon. So I talked fast. There was a lot of information there, but I appreciate your attention. We're super proud to present this report to you. We're looking forward to your feedback. PreservationBenefitsColorado.com. Check it out. Thank you very much.